Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Panel to Panel. I'm your host John Bernardo. You'll notice someone different taking the reins tonight. Andrew couldn't make it, so I have with me a very special guest. He's a journalist. He's written for Polygon, Rolling Stone, and StarWars.com. He's also written for Variety. He's the co-host of the X-Wingin It podcast, which is a Star Wars video game podcast. And he's just released a book under the Boss Fights book banner for Knights of the Old Republic. Please welcome Alex Kane. Alex, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. Thanks so much for having me. It's crazy. I think you were the first person I ever, maybe the first or the second podcast that I was ever on, was you doing a video game interview. And it's cool that we've stayed in touch like ever since. And I remember that back then we talked about that Knights of the Old Republic book, and it just finally came out on the 9th. So it's pretty wild. But
it's been a long time coming for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm glad we definitely have a lot of common, and you've helped me with a lot of comic book recommendations. So I appreciate you sticking around, and I appreciate you helping me out and running the show this week.
Heck yeah.
For those of you that are not familiar with Panel to Panel, it's a weekly podcast centered around comic books. We talk about everything from actual comic books to the TV shows to the movies, everything in between. This week, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We're going to be focusing on Free Comic Book Day. But before we get into that, we're going to start the show with how we always started and talk about what we've been reading. So, Alex, what have you been reading in these last couple weeks?
Well, I've been, for the past year and a half, I've been really digging into getting caught up on all the Star Wars stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, cause it's sort of work related with the StarWars.com, I always want to try to stay up to date on that stuff when I can.
Of course.
The last week or so, or a few days since I saw Endgame, I've been reading, Matt Fraction's run on Invincible Iron Man that started when Iron Man 1 came out.
Okay. Is Iron Man close to what they've been doing with Tony Stark in the movies?
Not really. I mean, you can tell that there's a little bit of crossover in terms of who Tony Stark is. I think that run began in 2008. So, it would have been kind of one of those jumping on points. Okay, we've got a new writer, new artist, new creative team doing an Iron Man book. It starts the same year as Jon Favreau's Iron Man comes out. So, it's an interesting little time capsule. I missed it when it was new, but sort of after I saw Endgame, I was like, I got to read some Iron Man stuff, because it had been a while. I'd read Kieran Gillen's first 2 or 3 volumes of his Iron Man run back when they were sort of fresh, 2013 maybe. And I love the art in those books. The art's incredible in those. But the storytelling is a little goofy, kind of like Iron Man 3 kind of goofy. So, and I appreciate Iron Man 3 a lot. I love that movie, but I mean, in a comic book, you kind of want more, less of the extremist stuff and more of, plotty bits and character work, right?
Of course.
Who's Tony Stark and what's he all about? And, kind of the Peter Parker stuff that makes Marvel really tick, they're just regular people, right? They just happen to be superheroes. I think that's what Marvel tends to do really well, or at least what gets me to read Marvel stuff. And yeah, so far, this Matt Fraction run that started in 2008, it does a really good job of that. The art's pretty good. I'd have to look up the artist's name. He's got a great name, but it's escaping me. It starts with an S last name, but Saruka, I want to say.
Okay.
But yeah, Fraction's Iron Man run, so far so good.
I also need to check out Fraction's Hawkeye book. I keep hearing about it. I need to check that one out too.
Yeah, and I read the beginning of that run, the first couple issues or something way back when everybody kept talking about it, and always intended to keep going and just haven't gotten around to it yet. But it was really good, despite me not really knowing about Hawkeye as a character at the time, or really caring about Hawkeye as a character.
Right.
And it speaks for itself. Like the art is really top notch. The writing was really top notch in the issues that I read. Yeah. And Star Wars has been pretty good lately. They just did Galaxy's Edge #1, which is sort of like the comic that ties into the theme park that's coming out, like later this year. Man. That's opening up. So
I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to go to that so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to like rob a bank or something so I can afford to go.
It is ridiculous.
Take my kid in a couple of years. But yeah, like judging by the first issue of Galaxy's Edge #1, that series is going to be really fun read. And you can already see how it ties into the theme park, which is cool. Like, there's a shop with an Athorian animatronic merchant, who's got his own like canon backstory and everything. And he's a character in the comic, and he's looking for some artifact, and Han Solo's hunting it down and all that stuff. So
is the theme park basically, so they're telling a story in this book, and the theme park is based off of that story? Like they're designing things around that story?
I mean, they've been developing this for a few years now. This is like a big thing, long time coming, where, the best minds at Lucasfilm, I think, have been, putting as much work into the theme park as they would, like, the trilogy of films that they're about to wrap up, like, I think that they take it very seriously as like, okay, this is part of the future of the Star Wars brand. They've got, Disney parks. They just like reintegrated some of their internal structuring so that like the people who work on the video games and stuff, they're like part of the big parks division of the corporation or whatever. So it's like they're really like in a preparatory stage right now where everything kind of flows toward Galaxy's Edge as like the next big thing, right? Well, and then of course they've got the TV stuff, which that'll have its own wave of publishing tied into it as well. But we know nothing about that as far as I'm aware. So a lot of Galaxy's Edge stuff right now because it's just right around the corner that's going to open up.
That's cool, man. And anything else you've been reading? So you've been reading some Star Wars and some Iron Man. Anything else you've been writing off of right now?
As far as comics, there's been the Age of Republic series kind of wrapped up pretty recently, I think. That was Jody Houser's sort of like series event of like one-shots. So like basically she did the prequel trilogy. There's like the Age of Republic, Age of Rebellion, and then going to be Age of Resistance coming. So she did the prequel trilogy ones where one shot was dedicated to Darth Maul, one was dedicated to Qui-Gon Jinn, one was dedicated to Jango Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay. So they go deep cuts on there.
Yeah, and they I read the Count Dooku one, who's sort of Christopher Lee's character from episodes 2 and 3, sort of the old Dracula Sith Lord, who's very like prim and proper, so that guy from the Clone Wars and all that, you see like big important parts of his backstory in there. And Darth Maul was like a real nice like deep cut for kind of the hardcore fans, but also it's just like a cool little short story about sort of a what if scenario. So
I always like those what if scenarios. I think those are really cool because it's a good way to have like a standalone story in any publisher without having to break any continuity.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too spoilery, but basically what she did with the Darth Maul issue was he goes, it doesn't break from continuity, but he has a force vision where he kind of he goes to this planet, the site of this like ancient battle on Malachor, and sort of has a vision of what his life could have been had he been like a Jedi instead of a Sith. So it's very like, it's bold.
That does sound interesting.
Yeah, it's bold stuff. But yeah. So I mean, I've just like the thing rattling around in my brain for the last like few days has been Endgame. So I'm very much in the mode that I want to read Marvel stuff at the moment. So
I hear that, man.
So yeah, I was very like, I had a very specific agenda for like my Star Wars reading, and it just got totally derailed by that movie. So yeah, I've got some Thor stuff in my backlog that I'm excited to get to, and some I've recently read like Donny Cates's Venom, like the beginning of that. Things like the beginning of Tony Stark Iron Man by Dan Slott, which I'm going to be reading the hell out of that as soon as I get the chance to get the next volumes of that one. That one was so good. Like the first volume of that was really exciting. But yeah, that's basically what I've been up to. Yep.
Yeah, you mentioning some of those books is I just came across just before this episode a really weird one, Cosmic Ghost Rider, that looks bonkers as fuck, and it looks awesome. I think that's something I want to. I think it was the same guy that did that one. Coates is on that one as well.
Oh, he's
so
great writer.
Yeah, it just looks great. So that's something I'm usually not one for some of those wacky ones, so I'm very curious to jump into that. But that kind of leads into what I've been reading. We had a publisher reach out to us last week to review a book for them, Starburns Industries Press. They reached out to us and they wanted us to review Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia.
Nice.
So I read issue 1 and 2 of this book, and the basic premise is that there's a planet somewhere that is full of wrestlers, and and it's about this normal guy, and he is a wrestler on Earth, and he obviously, we know wrestling is scripted, so he loses the belt and he declares himself the champion of the universe, and then this planet gets the transmission that he's the champion of the universe, so they come down, invade Earth, and they start basically just wrestling people instead of aliens coming down and shooting people. No, they're coming down and they're giving power bombs and suplexes and things like that. And nice. It's really weird, really wacky. I only have the first 2 issues, and I was a little hesitant at first, but I actually really like the art. The story, as wacky as it is, it's fun. I used to be a wrestling fan, so seeing that kind of put into an invasion alien type story is really cool as well.
Nice.
It was written by Edward, I don't know if I'm saying this last name right, Cunell, and the art was done by Dan Skade. So it's a very bright book. It's very independent.
Yeah.
So they're actually going to have a sample of it at Free Comic Book Day. So if anyone's interested in checking out one of the issues, it'll be there available for Free Comic Book Day. But it's very, very well done for such a small time book, and I'm looking forward to. I hope I get to read more. I don't know if they're planning on doing more, or if they're still in the works of it. But issues 1 and 2 have been a lot of fun, and I'm usually kind of a collected volume reader, so to see it. To read something issue 1 and 2, I kind of get a little impatient. But no, issue 1 and 2 are definitely great, and looking forward to reading more. But that's been it for me. Unfortunately, like you said yourself, with Endgame, it's kind of putting my comic reading on hold. But I am definitely inspired to read a lot more Marvel this week. I mentioned Cosmic Ghost Rider. You mentioned Matt Fraction. I actually want to read the Hawkeye run, and I really, really need to finish Ultimate Spider-Man. That's one that I feel like for me right now, as someone that has always stayed away from Marvel because of how daunting it could be. Ultimate Spider-Man, I feel like, is so confined and so straightforward that it's so easy to get into and get sucked into that story. It's a great story. I don't know if have you read Ultimate Spider-Man?
I've read like the beginning of it, so I don't know how many issues I got into it, but maybe like at most volume 1.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, what's interesting is like Into the Spider-Verse kind of made me a Miles Morales fan, like I...
Oh, okay.
Because that had been going on for a while, when I started to get into Marvel books, or even like dip my toe into Marvel books. So, but yeah, it was like, so, you're always afraid to kind of be like, oh, I'm going to, what's behind door number 3? Oh,
yeah,
the 400 books that I haven't read that all kind of, go together or whatever. But yeah, Spider-Verse really made me want to explore that character. And I also picked up a bunch of Spider-Gwen, which, I mean, that's like, it's really easy to read like all of Spider-Gwen. It's like, I don't know.
I love Spider-Gwen.
Yeah.
I love, that's one of my favorite costume designs.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm like probably 3 volumes deep on that one, or 4 volumes deep, and it's really great book. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
My only problem with when I started reading Spider-Gwen is and this is probably with a lot of Marvel books, when halfway through it's a crossover and you have to go and read the other book, which usually is not a problem, especially when you're digital. But you have to go, if you find that out at the end of the issue, you have to go out and buy it. And in my case, I'm kind of OCD, so if I go out and read, halfway through, I have to read Miles Morales' story, then I want to go back and read his series from the beginning leading into that. And I don't want to just start there, you know what I mean? So that gets a little frustrating. That's the only daunting thing about the Marvel stuff. That's why I prefer more standalone stuff. But Spider-Gwen is great, and I do want to read Gwenpool as well.
Yeah, same. Yeah, when I first started getting into like superhero books, I was really spoiled by Snyder's New 52 Batman. I mean, that was like, it was so self-contained. Like, it rarely had that crossover quality. It was sort of like the rest of DC kind of had to bend toward it rather than the other way around, right? So,
right.
Like 9 times out of 10, like you could just be like, oh, I'm going to go pick up my comic pull file, which is like mainly Snyder's Batman, and it's going to be amazing. And now, everything's kind of, you can, it's a period where there's a lot of good work being done, but you do have to kind of, get recommendations from people and like
for sure
sometimes put up with some of that crossover stuff, but
you definitely have to do some digging. You can't just kind of blindly, I'm going to jump into this right now.
Yeah, that's why I do appreciate how like Comixology and these other digital platforms they really do curate stuff for you in a way that's like when I decided I wanted to read some Iron Man, it's like, oh well, here's the 12 volumes of Iron Man, like these are the ones that you're looking for. Like it's all together nice and neat, and that you're not missing anything. And yeah,
like sometimes I debate, like for example with Cosmic Ghost Rider, it's like, well, do I want to chug through Marvel Unlimited, or do I just want to pay $3 and just have the collected volume?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is a struggle. But all right, well that's great. Just some great things you've been reading. Hopefully this week leads us to some more reading. Because this upcoming Saturday, May the 4th be with you, is Free Comic Book Day. And anyone that doesn't know about it, Free Comic Book Day is an annual event founded on the belief that for every person out there, there's a comic book that they'll love. So it happens every year on the first Saturday in May. And just basically different publishers give away sometimes they give away old books, or they'll give away books that are specifically made for Free Comic Book Day. And it's not just, small time or big time. We have Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Boom, Image, everybody that releases something will have something out there. So with it coming this Saturday, and with us trying to be the people that kind of get people into comic books, I wanted to talk about Free Comic Book Day. I wanted to go over, I guess, what we can expect from Comic Book Day, and just talk about our experiences. So, Alex, you and I were looking at the list earlier. I don't know. Have you attended a few of these Free Comic Book Days?
Oh yeah. I mean, my local comic shop closed in 2017, tragically, but it was open for 8 years, and I was sort of one of the loyal customers for 8 years. And that's where. We had a Walden Books, which is like owned by the same company as Books A Million. That whole corporation went under in like whatever year it was, like 2008 or something. And it was like, oh, our bookstore's gone. And then Stone Alley Books and Collectibles opened like a year later, and it was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm going to go buy some Star Wars comics, which meant that at the time I collected comics. I didn't really like read them yet.
Yeah, you just put them in a like nice white box and just let them sit there.
Yeah, because they were Star Wars. And so I go there and I'm like, hey, where are your Star Wars comics at? And he's like, all we have right now is DC and Marvel, but we'll have Star Wars soon. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I can't just like not buy anything. And of course, I bought like The Killing Joke, and I bought
great book.
I bought some random Spider-Man stuff, and things like V for Vendetta and whatnot, and
the classics, staples.
Just really got hooked, and so I attended a bunch of free comic book days at that place at Stone Alley. So I miss it. It's an incredible event, and I'm excited that I get to go this year. After at least at least a few years of not getting able to go. Yeah, I've got one that I'm going to go to this year. So.
Yeah, I haven't gone in quite some time, just mainly because I am more of a digital person now versus physical. But now with my nephew growing up, and I've slowly got him into some comics, I'm gonna take him down to a few shops and just have him, get into it, grab a few books. It's the best part is that it's free. There's no place will ever ask you to purchase anything. You could walk in, grab a book, and leave, and that's the best part. I mean, ideally you don't. You should support your comic shop, but they're welcoming people that even if, you're too shy, you can grab a book and just take it with you. So I wanted to kind of go through a few of the books. Have you seen any of them? Is there any of them that are kind of standing out to you that you'd really like to pick up?
Oh yeah, I mean, Avengers. You can never really go wrong with Avengers.
Especially now.
yeah. It's not always like your cup of tea, depending on what the story is. But like, when I go on Saturday, if I have a chance, I'm going to try to grab like Avengers, Stranger Things catches my eye. Like, I'm really excited that there's a Stranger Things book.
Same here.
There's a Pokemon thing that looks like it's an adaptation of, sort of like the original anime, because it's called I Choose You, and I think it's I think it's like a retelling of like the original like season 1 of the original anime from the 90s or from like 2000 or whatever, but don't know too much about it other than that would be one that I would grab.
It does sound like that. Just reading the description, it does sound like it's his first Pokemon, and it actually looks like it's 2 books in one. It also has one called Pokemon Adventures, which follows Red, which is the character from the video game.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that looks like a good one.
Yeah, Ash's like original name basically before they did the whole. There's Robotech, which Robotech Macross. Or Super Dimension Fortress Macross, I think is like, it's sort of like, a Japanese title, or like it's more authentic title. I love the Macross saga. That would be one that I would grab. Kavan Scott and one other writer whose name escapes me have Star Wars Adventures free comic book issue, and Star Wars Adventures is an absolute blast. I think that people look at it and at a glance it looks like it's for kids.
That's what I thought when I saw it.
But yeah, I mean, it's it's fun. It's really fun. There's a big Spider-Man sort of like, there's a Spider-Man issue with several writers, and I guess it's like a preview of an upcoming crossover event that's happening like later in the year or something with like Venom. So that's that Danny Coates again, and who else? Like Ryan Stegman and all those guys who are working on Spider-Man right now. I guess the one that like I would sort of urge people to try is there's a Goon crossover somewhere. Where is it? Grumble versus the Goon.
Grumble versus the Goon.
Grumble versus the Goon. Yeah.
I see that here. Yeah.
Yeah, the Goon is incredible. And
I thought it was based off that hockey movie with Sean William Scott, because I love that movie.
No. So the Goon is by, what's his name, Eric Powell, and it's one of those little indie things like The Walking Dead or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that just blew up and became a phenomenon. David Fincher supposedly is working on a movie adaptation that's he's talked about for like almost a decade or something. Like, who knows if that's happening or not, but. Yeah, the Goon is incredible. It's like a horror comic that is also just like, gut busting hilarious. Like, it pokes fun at horror, and it pokes fun at pop culture. And, it's just incredible. Like, that's the one that I would urge people to pick up and try, even though like to look at it, it's like, maybe it's not, immediately recognizable the way Pokemon or Star Wars is, but like, damn, the Goon is so good. Like, check
that
it.
Might increase your chances of getting it if people are grabbing Pokemon. Maybe the Goon will just be waiting for you.
Yes, check out the Goon. But But yeah, those are the ones that stand out to me. How about you?
Yeah, some of the ones we're gonna cross on. So yeah, Stranger Things definitely on my list. And I actually noticed that Stranger Things comes with Black Hammer, which I haven't read, but I've heard a lot of things about. So I definitely want to pick that one up. Pokemon one, I think that'd be fun, especially for my nephew. There's a Ninja Turtle one called Casualty of War. I have almost all the volumes of the new IDW Ninja Turtles run, and I definitely don't want to stop because it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite iterations of Ninja Turtles across all mediums, so it's really good. So if you haven't read the newest Ninja Turtle run, it's on sale often on Comixology. So I mean, I'll mention the sale here when it is, but it is a great book. Have you read the Ninja Turtles at all?
I have not read the Ninja Turtles book, but I'll say this: like, I don't think I've ever picked up like an IDW book that like sort of caught my eye and been like disappointed or felt that like I wish I hadn't bought this. Like IDW, the artists are always like, just I'm in awe of the art in any IDW comic I ever pick up, and usually the story is good. You know, I mean, they write for different kinds of audiences. Sometimes it is sort of aimed at a younger audience, but some of my absolute favorite comics have been published by IDW. So again, sort of like the Goon, maybe it doesn't have DC or Marvel like in the corner, but check out IDW stuff. And I'm sure Turtles is the same thing, but I haven't read that one yet. Transformers is like the other big IDW success. Great stuff.
Another one that I've just another one that Donnie Cates has done here. Man, this guy's everywhere.
He is everywhere.
Is this the same guy? Jesus. There's one called Interceptor. I don't know anything about it, but the artwork looks fantastic. Looks like the same guy that actually does the art for Cosmic Ghost Rider, Dylan Burnett. I can't even describe it, but look up Interceptor. It's coming from Vault Comics. Looks like mech suits and machine guns and awesome. It just looks awesome, man. It just looks like it's very vampire based, but this one looks great. So that one's, I just popped that one up now, so I'm gonna check that out. What else we got here? This one's really funny. So for people that don't know soccer, I'm sure you know who this is. Cristiano Ronaldo. He has a book called Striker Force 7. I don't know why, but he's a superhero now. And apparently it's going to be coming out with an animated show. I don't plan on getting this. I just think it's funny that a soccer player has that. So that caught me off guard. This is what I was mentioning before, how they re-release old books for people for free. Spawn #1, the very, very first Spawn book is being released for free for anybody to get. And that I've been wanting to read Spawn since I've seen the movie when I was a kid. I got into comics late, so that imagery has always captured me, like the animated show from Spawn. I've always been interested in it. So, and I've always been too scared to pick it up because that series is almost at issue 300 right now. So it's scary. But I definitely want to pick that up. So Spawn is on my list. Star Wars Adventures, I have a feeling I would have fun with. I did enjoy the Batman Ninja Turtle crossover, which was based around the animated shows. Oh yeah. Not the more mature Batman Ninja Turtles that's now on part 3. Just the other one that's based off the animated series of Batman and the current iteration of Ninja Turtles, and that was a lot of fun as well. And other than that, I probably will check out the Spider-Man. Other than that, though, I think that's it for me. I'm hoping that they'll have what I want, and if they're not, I can grab some random stuff like the Goon, which wasn't on my list before, but it is now. And hopefully, have some surprises. At the end of the day, you don't find what you want, you grab what you can get, and you never know what you might run into, right? Like, that's the best part about it.
Yeah, so 2 things about Free Comic Book Day. So there's like no more exciting day like in the year to go to a brick and mortar comic shop. Like they really go all out, and like if you're going to go to a comic shop one day out of 365 days in the year, like you go on Free Comic Book Day, and it's just like insane. And it's so much fun. And like they really try to kind of win your heart and like get you to come more often. And it works. I mean, like it's, it's part of what made me love going to the comic shop was Free Comic Book Day, and just like the kind of seeing like the passion of like a community, like all coming out to get free books. And the second thing is just you see a cover and it's like, oh, like this looks weird. Like this doesn't look like anything I've read before. Like those are the ones that you grab and maybe you read and like you just fall in love with. So, I mean,
yeah, just take a chance. Like what's the worst that's going to happen? You wasted 5 minutes of your time.
Yeah. Like they're free. So, right. Like you can try it. And if you don't love it, like you can just give it away. Right. Like that's, floppy issues are a very fun thing to kind of like pass around at work on your lunch break, right? If like
for sure,
if you didn't dig something, you can just give it to a friend or a coworker, and they might love it. So again, like you can't really beat Free Comic Book Day as like an opportunity for that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go for the first time in like 3 years. It's really exciting, and my plan this time now, because I've actually just recently got rid of all my physicals, which was a sad day because I don't have a lot of space in my condo. But my plan this year is to pick up the books, read them, and then we have sort of a rec room library in the condo. So once I'm done with them, I'm gonna leave them there for next person to enjoy.
Awesome.
Pay it forward. So any of if you want to know about the books that are at Free Comic Book Day, just go to freecomicbookday.com/catalog. You can see everything there, which kind of leads me into what I wanted to tell everybody today is, planning for Free Comic Book Day. Ideally, yes, you can just walk in to any comic book shop, but it would be best if you know where you're going, because some cities are kind of far and few between. So see if you know in advance. You can contact your local comic book shop and make sure they're actually doing it. I don't see why they wouldn't, but never hurts to check, because some stores are more focused on trading cards nowadays. You can also like I just gave the website for freecomicbookday.com. Browse it, kind of bring a list of what you want, so you can hunt that down. But the comic shop, actually, they pay for these books. They don't cost a lot, but they do pay for these books. So that's why there's a limited supply. So you do want to get there a little bit early if there is a particular book that you want to get. But overall, like bring your camera, because a lot of people come in cosplay. Feel free to dress up yourself. I wish I could. I don't have any cool costumes, but there's a lot. There's people will do giveaways, prizes, all that kind of stuff. So my last experience with it was just basically, go to a few shops and grab the books I want and leave. I definitely want to immerse myself in the experience this time and spend more time at the comic shop. What do you remember, like your first time going to a Free Comic Book Day, like your very first time?
Yeah, it must have been like 2009 or something like that. 2009 or 2010. Like I said, that Stone Alley Books and Collectibles opened up in like 2009 and closed down in 2017. And I remember him saying, like, this guy Stone ran it, hence Stone Alley, Ben Stone Stomberg, who's like a local rock radio DJ, really cool guy, nice guy. He totally got me hooked on superhero books because, he didn't have Star Wars comics. So,
of course.
Yes.
He forced you into it.
Yeah. And, he's like, are you coming to Free Comic Book Day? And I'm like, what the hell is Free Comic Book Day? Like, free? Like, what's the catch, right? It just sounds... it would have been 2009 or 2010. You go in, and it's the busiest day of the year for a brick and mortar comic shop usually, and you're gonna see people maybe dressed up as Batman or whatever, bunch of kids getting dragged in by their parents, and maybe they're wearing like Spider-Man t-shirts, and they just give away stuff. Maybe they'll have sales on like used books that, maybe they have like a bunch of boxes full of used old stuff, like sort of vintage comics. And maybe those are, such and such % off. And it's a good day to go and just sort of browse. And, there's a good energy because people are getting a bunch of cool free stuff and they're just happy about it. And I definitely had like a nice little love affair with that store. 8 years, I would go there and pick up my file, and Free Comic Book Day was the day that I would sort of spend the most time there and kind of browse those vintage things, because it was like I was getting a bunch of free comics, so it's like you do feel like, oh, so this is the day that I have the excuse to buy that big Avengers hardcover that is overpriced and I shouldn't buy, but today I feel like maybe I'll buy it, you know, or whatever, or I'll dig through the vintage Batman stuff and get something that's going to look pretty in a frame or whatever it is that you like to do with your collection, I guess.
Oh yeah.
I've never really like framed any books. Like I've got some nice, you know, sort of vintage floppies, but yeah, I haven't framed anything or anything like that.
Space is a hard thing to find.
Yeah. Yeah, most of my comics are just kind of like in drawers and things like that, kind of just, you know, the way they would be at like a shop or whatever. Yeah.
Did you happen to mention, I'm sorry if I missed it, did you happen to mention which shop you're going to go to this weekend?
Oh.
Or you want to give like a shout out to whatever shop you're going to?
Yeah, definitely. So I've actually never been to this place, but it's about an hour drive from where I'm at. So it's B-Town Comics, I believe is the full name. B-Town Comics in Burlington, Iowa, and they're a relatively new business, so that's exciting and beautiful. I don't know, you know, like thank God there's a comic shop in Burlington.
Yeah.
But yeah, Burlington is a really cool place along the Mississippi River, unless I'm completely messing up my geography, but it's along the river near where I grew up relatively, and yeah, beautiful little city. What else?
You better hope you know where it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're gonna get lost real quick.
No, I know exactly how to get there, I think. But yeah, it's a great little river city. And I'm actually doing a book signing there for the Knights of the Old Republic nonfiction book that I just published. So I'm going to be doing the book signing, but maybe I'll get there an hour early and grab some Stranger Things and Star Wars and whatnot. But yeah, I'm excited. The owner, I believe, is a guy named Jeff. He seems really nice. I mean, he reached out to me and said, hey, like somebody said you just published a book. Like, you want to come do a signing? You know, because Star Wars Day and Free Comic Book Day are the same day this year on Saturday. So
that's true. Yeah, that kind of worked out nicely, didn't it?
Yeah. So it's like, I think I'm going to go sign some books for like a few hours, and in the downtime when there's nobody there potentially buying my book or wanting me to sign it, yeah, I'm gonna browse comics and check the place out. But yeah.
And to anyone that is interested in anything about, you know, Knights of the Old Republic or Star Wars or just video games in general, definitely check out the boss fight book for Knights of the Old Republic. I personally haven't picked mine up yet, but you know I will be soon because, you know, that game holds a special place in my heart. So I'm really excited to see what you've written on that. And I've heard a lot of people have praised it. So I'm seeing people that have, I don't know, connected to you and seeing them talking about it. It's getting me excited to read it. But
awesome.
There's a lot of comic books to read, a lot of books to read. So it's on my list to read, and I definitely want to get to that as soon as possible. For me, my local comic shop is one that I just sold my books to, and I just found them because I was trying to find a place on where to go. Mm-hmm. They're called Gotham Central Comics. They're located in Mississauga, Ontario, in Canada.
Nice.
They're going to be doing, first off, it's Gotham, so how can you not want to go there? And I went there, and it's huge. It's absolutely massive. And they'll be doing giveaways and a bunch of other stuff like that. So I'm really excited to, take my nephew to that one. Other than that, I just moved here recently, so I'm still looking around for other shops. There are a few more, but I feel like Gotham Central is the one that stands out the most to me. It's one of those ones where you just want to stay in there. You just want to spend time in there, whether you buy something or not. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a mini Comic-Con. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you just enjoy being around all those figures, all the comics. They have some rare stuff that costs thousands of dollars. They have they have the bins, like the bargain bins, and plenty of figures because that's how these businesses stay open. But yeah, definitely guys got to get out there and check out your local comic shop. If you're in either of our areas that we've mentioned, please check out those shops. Otherwise, just Google comic book shops in your area or go to freecomicbookday.com, and I'm pretty sure they have a store locator there.
As a sidebar, yeah, there's actually a website that I remembered there being one. I had to Google it just now, but it's comicshoplocator.com, and you can actually basically type in your zip code or whatever it is, and it'll show you comic shop events. It'll show you the stores in your area. So yeah, that's exciting. If the store is brand new, maybe it won't be super reliable, but in general, there are tools out there to help you find a comic book store, and Yeah, I mean,
I've actually never seen that site before, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm just on it right now. I noticed that they even have there's a link for outside of North America, so you don't have to be in North America to do it. So that's great, man.
Awesome. Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, nothing.
No, I was gonna say is I'm on it right now, and when you search for it, it'll actually tell you if they're participating in Free Comic Book Day. So this will be an easy way for you to find out who's going to be doing Free Comic Book Day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and there's an app. There's an app on iOS or Google Play. So yeah, even better. You can do it.
I love apps. Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks. I'll put the link in the description for anyone that wants a direct link to it. But Comic Shop Locator is my new site. Awesome. All right, man. That's great. So let's move on to the sales of the week. Every week, I mainly focus on Comixology sales because it's kind of it's the hub of our digital sales. If you ever see, if people see something that's going on in their local shop, we'll definitely promote that. But for right now, we're still small potatoes, so we're going to stick to just Comixology. So we still have some of the sales going on from last week. We have an American Gods sale, Jeff Lemire sale, which focuses around the books. What were the books called? I'm just pulling it up here. I'll come back to that one. Here it is. Gideon Falls, Descender. Those are some of the top books. He writes for Image, so a lot of people liking those. The Boombox sale is still going into May 9th. Vertigo, who does iZombie, Swamp Thing, and a few Preacher, all things that you've seen turn into TV shows. Yep. So those ones are still going on. Some new sales that I've noticed popping up would be, I saw that they have a sale up for Dynamite. Mm-hmm. One of their highlights here is The Boys, which is turning into a TV show. That one's really popular as well. They have some James Bond comics, if that's what you're into. There's also a DC Villains sale that just started. So Dark Knight Metal is on there, something I've really wanted to read. Have you read that, Dark Knight's Metal?
No, I want to. I want to read that and that and Sean Murphy did one called White Knight around the same time. God. I really want to read both of those. They look amazing. I just haven't.
It was actually funny you mentioned that because on our first episode of this, we talked about White Knight. It's my favorite Batman story.
Oh, wow.
My co-host was in the middle of reading it and he was loving it. I cannot recommend that book to you enough. It is amazing. And there's a sequel coming out. So
I would say Murphy might be my favorite comic artist. He's just an incredible artist. And so he both wrote and did the pencils for that, right? If I'm not mistaken.
He had a little bit of help on some other stuff with somebody else. I unfortunately don't remember the name right now, but he did have somebody do some other work on it. But he did run the whole thing, and he does have his signature style that you've seen in books like Chrononauts. It's the signature style is in there, and
The Wake. Did you read The Wake?
I haven't read The Wake, but it is on my list.
God, dude. Oh, The Wake. That might be my favorite standalone horror miniseries. Just as a little an aside there. Sorry.
I actually think that one might be one of the ones on sale. But back to White Knight. There is so many. To go back to Endgame, how Endgame is a celebration of the MCU. I feel like White Knight has a bunch of little Easter eggs for everything Batman related, and it's fantastic in every way possible. If you can, please read it as soon as possible. I've told the audience already that they needed to read it. I'm telling you directly now. You got to read it.
I think I've seen a lot of little Batmobile panels, right? Like where he has the Batmobile from Batman Forever and shit like that, right?
Yep. I didn't want to spoil it, but since you've already no, not for our audience. It's fine. People have had time to read it, but if you've seen it, then you know. But there's so much more to it than that. So that's a little taste of what he's done,
just from following him on Twitter, and him sharing art.
But speaking of The Wake, it is on sale. Regular $16.99. It's on sale right now for $5.99.
It's a must read. It's a must read. I mean, it's Scott Snyder and Sean Murphy.
Which is an insane lineup.
Incredible book.
So I'm gonna add that to. I might even pick that up. Actually, I might pick it up today. So we'll see. But those are the sales. There's a bunch of Marvel sales. So if you're riding that Endgame high, there is sales across everything Marvel. So definitely check that out.
I got like 65 or 66 Iron Man issues for $39, $45, something like that. Like $40.
That's silly. That's just ridiculous.
$40 for 60 plus issues of Invincible Iron Man. So yeah, that sale, it'll get you.
Yeah, just be careful, okay, guys. If you're on there, just make sure you watch your wallet.
Yes.
All right. Well, yep, those are the sales. If anything new pops up that's not that I haven't mentioned, I will add it to our show notes. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap it up here. We're gonna wrap up as we usually do with our recommendations of the week. Alex, I know you haven't had much time to prepare, but do you have a recommendation of the week for our listeners here?
Of the week. I mean, so you're talking about like weekly new issues?
Oh, no. Anything that you've read in your lifetime that you want to recommend to the listeners. It can be anything. It could be anything that's your first comic book. It could be something that you read last week. There's no limit on which it's a book that you want to recommend to somebody for them to read.
Sure, yeah. No, you may have heard this one before, but just in case I never come on this podcast again, hopefully I get to, but read Lock and Key by Joe Hill.
Yes.
Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez, I believe is his last name, the artist. I mean, you talk about an incredible writer with an incredible boundless imagination at the top of his game, paired with one of the best comic book artists who, is working today. And they got to do 6-7 volumes of an original horror fantasy story that sort of takes place across like 2 or 3 different generations of people living in a small New England town. Very Stephen King. Hill is Stephen King's son. He's one of the,
I didn't know that.
One of the nicest people I've ever met. Incredible guy. It's like there's sort of like body possession. There's the name is Lock and Key. The family at the center of the story, their last name is Lock, but of course there's all these magical keys that open magical doors and do all this goofy stuff. And it's definitely one of the best stories told in comics. It's sort of like our generation's Sandman. You know what I mean? That's like overselling it maybe to the wrong person, to somebody who would love Sandman but not Lock and Key. They're gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? But I mean, it really is, I believe, like our generation's dark fantasy story, like Sandman was for the previous generation. And you can't go wrong. And they're making it into a series as well, so if you want to get ahead of the curve and
be one of the cool kids that I knew about it before the TV show.
Yeah, I don't have any idea if like the series is going to be good or not. I don't remember who was cast in it, but I promise you won't regret reading Lock and Key.
And it's great that you mentioned that, because that was actually one of the first books I really got hooked into. I remember buying it because I was new to comics. I was worried that I was going to commit to volumes and then not like it, so I bought issue to issue, and because there was a crazy sale on Comixology. It was 99 cents an issue, so every time I would read one, I would just buy the next and the next and the next, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't put that book down. The TV show I know has been in development hell forever. It was supposed to be on Fox, and it was exciting that they had a pilot and everything, but it just didn't work out. Which thank God, because Fox doesn't have a great track record. But I think it's coming to Netflix actually. I don't know. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's a Netflix series. I actually saw the pilot that I don't know when they filmed the pilot, but in 2013 I actually got to watch it, and it was very like back when they were scared to give a TV show that needed a budget for effects and for makeup and things like that. It was like great performances, well directed, well written, but it didn't really have the budget the way like Stranger Things season 2 did, So
right.
Ultimately, it's a good thing that didn't get picked up and that we've had to wait for it to kind of get rebooted. Hopefully this will deliver, but yeah. As in terms of like effects and really like selling it, half as well as the comic does. Yeah, I mean, the timing is much better.
For sure. So yeah, everyone, check out Lock and Key. At least check out Volume 1. You owe it to yourself to check out Volume 1. You most likely will get sunk in after that, but the recommendation is just to at least check out the one book. We don't want to make you broke yet. My recommendation for the week is here's not too old. It's from 2016. It's called We Stand on Guard. It's set 100 years in our future, and it follows a heroic band of Canadian civilians turned freedom fighters who must defend Canada from an invasion by another country who is technologically superior than us, the United States. So it's a war between U.S. and Canada, and it is a standalone book. It's only 6 issues. It's written by Brian K. Vaughan, who does Saga. So I think he's well known. And it's a very interesting book. Seeing how these two countries go to war. That where Canada is the U.S. little brother, and just to see. I don't want to give too much away, but just to see how this goes on and the twists and turns. It does rush through the book a little bit because it is a short story, but it is 6 issues of action-packed and twists and turns. So if you have a chance, check out We Stand on Guard. It's only 6 issues. You can buy it in a whole volume collected thing, and I recommend it. That's my recommendation of the week.
Yeah.
So that's that. Alex, awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to plug while we're here? We talked about your book. You're going to be doing a book signing. You got articles on StarWars.com. You've frequently written on Polygon. Is there anything else you wanted to plug before we go today?
I'm kind of in a weird space where I'm just sort of back to business as usual and getting to kind of do the freelance thing, more full time again and not have to worry about getting those damn book revisions done. So yeah, I kind of don't know what the next huge thing is. Like I did that 22,000 word oral history for Polygon on Morrowind, and then like a week later my book came out, and now I just kind of want to like collapse and like never work again. But yeah. I suppose that I'm going to have to anyway. But yeah, I mean, I imagine that, you'll see a lot of me at StarWars.com and Variety and things like that in the next couple months. So. All
right. And if people want to follow you to keep up with all of your shenanigans, where would they check that out?
Alex J. Kane on Twitter. Kane is my last name. So yeah, it's awesome. Usually where I'm at, goofing off, retweeting Star Wars fan art and arguing about movie rankings and stupid things like that.
And if you need to know which Star Wars books to read, definitely reach out to Alex, because I bug him all the time saying, should I read this? Should I pass on this?
Yeah.
And you thankfully have steered me clear of a few mistakes that I've almost made.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the vast majority of the Marvel Star Wars stuff is incredible, and I'm so glad that I have tried to read like all of it, because that sounds very daunting, but it's still early days. Like, we're 4 years deep into Marvel Star Wars, and yeah, they've had some incredible talent. Like Jason Aaron did the flagship series for a while, and yeah, I think he just absolutely rocked it. Kieran Gillen, who does like Wicked and the Divine, did a bunch of stuff for Marvel. Like, yeah, he's sort of one of their big talents. Jody Hauser, Charles Soule, like you can't go wrong. So
awesome. Well, you guys know me. I'm at John S. Bernardo on Twitter. Andrew Taylor, who's not here today, is at Papa Drew Bear. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter or Instagram at PanelPod. And that's it for this week's show. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks so much.